Hi y'all, this is Mrs. D, and today we're going to learn how to solve proportions. So let's go ahead and get started. So first we need to know what a proportion is. And a proportion is an equation where two ratios are equal. So let's talk about a ratio in case you missed the video. What is a ratio? A ratio is a comparison of two items or an item to the total amount. So for example, if we were talking about cats to dogs, we could say that there's one cat for every 3 dogs. So our ratio would be 1 to 3. And 3 to 9 is an equivalent ratio, so I can write my proportion as 1 over 3 equals 3 over 9. This is a proportion because I have two equal ratios. Now, proportions are useful when we're finding equivalent rates, scale factor, or conversion factor. And what we mean is we can use this proportion to figure out one of the missing pieces. So if I want to tell you that an equivalent rate can be found by using a proportion, we're going to talk about Sharon. And Sharon runs 3 miles in 36 minutes. At this rate, how far can she run in 60 minutes? So we can set this up as a proportion. Now, the first thing we want to do when we're setting up our proportion is we want to label. So I'm going to label this miles to minutes. And I have the first part set up here where I know that Sharon runs 3 miles in 36 minutes. The question wants to know how far can she run in 60 minutes? Well, since 60 is minutes, I can either put it on the top here or the bottom. And I know that minutes is on the bottom on this side, so minutes has to be on the bottom on the other side. So my 60 minutes is going to go on the bottom here. There's several ways you can solve a proportion, just like when you're finding equivalent fractions. Whenever I'm trying to decide, I can either figure out how many times 36 goes into 60, but I know 36 doesn't go into 60 evenly. Or I can figure out how many times 3 goes into 36, and I do know that goes in evenly, so that might be a good place to start. So I know that 3 goes into 36 by multiplying times 12. So the other side, I'm going to go backwards because I want to find out my smaller number on top. So I'm going to, instead of multiplying by 12, divide by 12. So if I divide 60 by 12, it's going to go in 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 plus 1 is 60. So the answer to how far can she run in 60 minutes would be 5 miles. There are several ways to solve a proportion. So let's see another way we can solve a proportion when we're finding the scale factor. The scale factor is usually determining a distance. So from your location to the zoo is 3 inches on the map. How many miles away is the zoo? So if we have a map here and we have our location and we have the zoo's location, the map scale factor tells us that 2 inches is equal to 5 miles. That means 2 inches on the map is equal to 5 miles in real life. So now we can use that information to figure out how far away we are from the zoo. So let's set up our proportion. So first we want to label our proportion. And we have 2, which is our inches on top. And then we have 5, which is our miles on the bottom. So let's see here. If 2 inches is 5 miles, we want to find out here 3 inches. So would our 3 inches go on the top or on the bottom? And I'm going to put it on the top because my inches is on top. Now I can use that information to solve for the distance that I am from the zoo in real life. Now this time we can figure out how many times 2 goes into 5, and it doesn't go in evenly. So then I'm going to look and see how many times 2 goes into 3, and it doesn't go in evenly either. So the other way that we can solve this is by cross multiplying our proportion. And when I cross multiply, I'm going to cross multiply both ways. So here I'm going to make an equation. So now I have 2 times an unknown is equal to 3 times 5. So if I solve this side, I can't do anything. 2x stays 2x. And on this side, 3 times 5 is 15. So the last step I have to do is figure out 2 times what number is equal to 15. Well, if I'm working backwards, the opposite of multiply is divide, so I can divide here. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I'm left with x on this side. And 15 divided by 2 is going to be 7.5. So that means that if on the map the zoo is 3 inches away, in real life it's going to be 7.5 miles. And you see I have that labeled here. So we would write 7.5 miles. Now, unless it indicates whether it wants a decimal or a fraction, you could write your answer either way. Now, when we're talking about proportions, we can also use them to convert measurements with the conversion factor. So when we have a conversion factor, we can use this proportion to figure out how many centimeters are equal to 18 meters. Well, the best way in order to figure that out is to use our star chart here. So on this chart, I can see that 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So I can use that information to set up my proportion. So here we have 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So now I'm trying to find out 18 meters. Well, since 18 is meters and meters is on top, I'm going to put my 18 here on top. And then I can solve for my missing number. 18 times 100 is 1800. That's going to be equal to 1x. And if I'm just dividing by 1, it's not going to change anything here. So my answer is 1800 centimeters. Now, any way I did this, 1 times 18 is 18. 100 times 18 is also 1800. Or I could say 1 times 100 is 100, and 18 times 100 is 1800. So this one would work in any direction because our number 1 is in the numerator. So let's go back over our steps with proportions. So first, a proportion is an equation where two ratios are equal. Proportions are useful when we're finding equivalent rates, scale factor, or the conversion factor. And you can also solve proportions by finding equivalent ratios or by cross multiplying and dividing. If you still need more help with proportions, you can watch this video a couple of times, but be ready to ask some specific questions if you need more help. This is Mrs. D signing off. Thanks for watching.